Oh my God. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar dedicated to the decentralized social media. Today, I'm going to be a moderator of the session, of the entire session, on behalf of the European Blockchain Observatory and Forum team. Before digging into the outline of the session, we would like to share with you some rules that we have to follow. Of course, we welcome and thank you for joining us today. The whole session in total will take about 2 hours. Will be split into parts, which I will present later. The webinar is recorded. However, only the moderator, the panelist, the keynote speaker will be on the video and on the audio. So we are going to perform also the Q&A session, but we don't have to, and we are not going to mention your names. So to speak, if you would like to be referred with your name, you can mention it in your question. So we know that it's we have your approval for that. If you would like to ask any question during the session, all the parts of it, please leave your message in the Q&A. We will be monitoring, and you can expect your answer to be responded either in the chat or maybe we will take it live. And we will not allow the audience in this session to speak out. So it will be only a written form of the feedback that we will be communicating with you. And we hope that it's fine with you. Thank you. So we can move on, I believe, the introduction. So today's session will be, as I mentioned, split into parts. The first part will be dedicated to the general intro in the story behind how we ended up having or hosting this very interesting webinar. We'll also call it sometimes workshop. During the first part, we will have our keynote speaker with a very motivating and enlightening discussion. And during the first part, you can ask the questions, anything that you would like to initiate in the discussion with the keynote speaker. Also, we will launch a poll, one question based on the presentation given, and we would like to assess your opinion. And we hope that we will engage with the audience, so you have your chance to be also communicated back and give feedback. The second part will be mainly dedicated to the panel discussion. And it will be, well, the story behind I will tell you, so hold on. We prepared several very interesting topics that we will touch upon. It will be based on the report that we will also soon publish. Again, there will be 6 topics. We will have Q&A session as well. And we will launch again a poll where we would like to ask you ahead to participate. Of course, this I will remind again, but just take this point as an action point. So generally, the purpose of this webinar is to start, let's say, open up the future of the online communication in the decentralized world. So all of us are considered to be general public. Nearly all of us are using social media. So moving on with the blockchain, and generally that blockchain is discussed a lot. We would like to see how the decentralization can affect the social media world. To tell you a little bit the story behind. So several months ago in the EUBOF, we started to work on the report. This report aimed to focus on the decentralized social media. So we, as I mentioned, we are going to publish this report very soon, in the following days. It will be about 45 pages. We wanted to make it shorter, but we got very much into subject. But interesting point that we've got very much into this whole topic, that we decided also to publish a paper. Because we didn't want to, to share with you something too cumbersome. we decided that we will split our efforts, and you will have a report which will help anyone, I believe, regardless of your skill set or expertise or background. It will guide you from the principles of the decentralized social media, we call it DSM for short, to the user experience and the exploitation business-wise, as well as legal aspects. The paper will be shorter, but it will be very focused on the concepts of the governance, decentralization, following example of social media networks, and how it will affect the solutions of the future. So this is also something more of the, I would say, creation of new concepts. And you have an opportunity, if you will be interested in this paper, you have an opportunity to study something that might be, become a next trend or next big concept. We have the team, and today we have all of the team on board. Sinika, listed the last, he will be our keynote speaker. The rest of the team will be joining the panel discussion. So all this team was formed, as I mentioned, several months ago, and all of us worked hard, and I think we formed a fantastic team from different skill sets and expertise experiences, but more I will present later. So the keynote speech, it will be dedicated to the decentralized brands, specifically social networks to be considered as a research labs. The speech will be given by Dr. Sinika Alboi. With Sinika, we collaborate for, I think, over many years, over past, I think, 4 maybe years, 3. Sinika is a senior software professional and a researcher. His PhD was focused on advancing privacy and decentralization using the blockchain technology. He has more than 20 years of experience in software development and about a decade in the project management. And of course, Sinika served many roles, technical and managerial, I would say mainly with a focus on the technical aspects, if it's managerial, such as Chief Technology Officer and also technical manager in the project, also EU-funded projects, for example, PharmaLedger. I can mention, and I can be more ambitious saying that Sinika is inventor of some of the technologies, for example, OpenDSU, which was the base for the PharmaLedger project, and now it's PharmaLedger Association. Also part of the Aperando project, also you funded. And generally, I can say that Sinika is actively contributing to scientific research, publications, and the main expertise or the main focus is towards the blockchain, cryptography, privacy-enhancing technology, the executable choreographies. Recently, the focus started to shift also for the integration or with the integration of the AI, privacy, again, cloud technologies. And because, again, as I mentioned, we are all general public and we are all motivated, I think, or many of us are motivated by the subjects that affect us. Sinika also is interested in the social technologies and technologies that are related to the social innovation. So today he will give a speech that is based on the studying and processing of the information related to this concept over the past 10 years. Sinika, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christina. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you hear me well. So let's start. Today, I will try to convince you that we are entering in an area where decentralized social networks have the potential to revolutionize the society and the governance in particular. As Christina mentioned, I started as a programmer. I'm a researcher in hard sciences, but I'm really interested in the last, I think, in social technologies, how we blend together hard technologies like blockchain, artificial intelligence with the social technologies like governance. Given the complex challenges of our times, I strongly believe that decentralized social networks could serve as the vital experimental grounds for pioneering new forms of social governance. Historically, brands had a huge influence on society. And when I'm talking about brands, I'm talking from the ancient gods that were basically starting the idea of having a brand. And now commercial brands, but even the countries, your cities, all have, in a way or another, have a brand. Therefore, an innovation like this concept that I'll try to present you, decentralized brands could serve as a major support for change, and as we'll talk in this presentation. Today, I'm here to share a narrative with you, a narrative that explores the complexities and challenges of the rapidly evolving world we live in. View my story about Moloch just like a possible metaphor, just a story, rather than an absolute truth. It's just a perspective. Before we dive in, let me echo the words of Albert Einstein. If I had an hour to solve a problem, I spent 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. So let's spend some quality time at the beginning understanding the problem landscape first. It's a bit subjective, but I hope you'll enjoy it together with me. We're living in an era marked by what is called acceleration of history. Technological advancements, particularly in communication technologies and artificial intelligence, are reshaping our lives at an unprecedented pace. While these technologies offer incredible opportunities, they also present personal challenges, contributing to social instability, and even pose civilization-level existential risks. So what's the central problem here? I want to introduce you the concept of Moloch, the god of arbitrage. This deity represents the self-destructive behavior plaguing our economic, cultural, political, and social systems. Moloch is the force that is making us prioritize short-term gains over long-term sustainability, often at the expense of societal well-being. But don't worry, this presentation isn't all doom and gloom. It's not all doom and gloom. I'll try to be as positive as possible. In the later part, we'll explore potential solutions to these challenges and talk about decentralized brands. I hope that you can agree with me that we are facing a lot of challenges that are interconnected, are amplifying each other, creating a feedback loop of complexity overall. First, it is quite likely that social networks, that's one of the subjects for today, are boosting self-focus, individualism, and altering gender roles with potential effects, bad effects on society at large. On the other hand, economic factors like increasing inequality is adding a new set of problems like eroding social cohesion and trust. Artificial intelligence will probably also move most of us in what is called a precariat social class, defined as people lacking meaningful ownership and control of their lives, competing for little scraps in a hostile, inhuman economic environment. So this is not a guarantee, but there's a huge risk around this. The growth of precariat social class and the looming risk of AI supplanting human labor will most probably fuel societal unrest and volatility. I understand volatility in the sense of acceleration of relevant historical events. So this volatility is exacerbated by the reducing confidence in the democratic institutions and in elites. Additionally, the phenomenon of elite overproduction serves usually in history as an indicator of future instabilities. We could expect a dual trend, an increase in power of some elites, controlling, for example, the artificial intelligence, the technology, and unfortunately, and diminishing role of humans in leadership, management, and even in employment. I will speak a bit more, Christian, on this. Sorry. So naturally, there will be a lot of people left behind that could opt to fight with the system and create revolutions like we had in the recent history, fascism, communism. And we could safely assess that when some somehow idealistic but focused on their own life, young people start to create revolutions, this typically doesn't go very well for the society in general. This is too destructive. And this is even worse in an age in which we have nuclear weapons, we have biological weapons, and maybe even potentially artificial intelligence demigods. So we cannot ignore even civilization level existential risks at this stage of history. As has been the case throughout history, elites, all sorts of elites, political, cultural, intellectual, including us as researchers, we stand to lose more if societal stability crumbles and revolutions led by irrational and disparate individuals begins to erupt. I believe that these risks are not just theoretical, they are tangible, yet there appears to be insufficient dialogue and even not so many solutions. So we are talking about the risk, but not about solutions too much. And I think in part this problem comes to the intellectual elites who currently enjoy a comfortable status quo and have relatively little incentives to disrupt it. So I want to repeat that these issues are interlinked, each are amplifying and impacting each other, creating a sense that historical events are accelerating. And as a conclusion, I think we must think on slowing down the acceleration itself without stopping the evolution of the technology and progress. I love technology, I love artificial intelligence potential to solve problems, but we should create solutions that will bring hope in the future, creating paths for inclusiveness and a way to redistribute the results of the scientific and technological research. Next slide. So let's go together to introduce this concept of Moloch race. It's not a term that I invented. I stole from the internet, but this is very nice metaphor to encapsulate the dilemma of acting against long-term interest for short-term gains. So imagine a race where even the winner is losing in the end. So this is quite paradoxical. And unfortunately, many, not many, but some people like me are believing that society seems to be engaged in a race like this Moloch race. So, for example, our current economic model is rife with wasteful practices like planned obsolescence, overproduction, resource depletion, right? We're seeing a surge in speculative investments and mindless competition. All of this eroding the base of the collaboration, the social trust, and all these factors trait resilience for monetary efficiency, leaving us vulnerable, basically in the long term, to crashes, to huge issues. So, on a cultural level, I would say that we could see an exaggerated craving for certainty manifested in techno-religions like dataism, a concept I took from Yuval Noah Harari, and an over-reliance on science until we fall in what some people are calling scientists, that making is from the science some sort of cargo cult responding to problems in inappropriate methods, let's say. All this often comes at the expense of what is traditionally called as wisdom, capacity to navigate in this complex world without certainty, but with just with the ability to learn, to adapt, without fixed ideas. Now, let's bring this into the context of the social networks a bit. We could say confidently, unfortunately, that most of these platforms seems to be designed to exploit our basest emotions: pride and envy, greed and lust, outrage and wrath, and a lot of superficiality is emerging from these networks. So they encourage people to chase short-term satisfaction at the cost of long-term well-being. So this is basically the Moloch race on this level. How do we escape the Moloch race? I believe that the answer lies in optimizing for long-term gains. That means we have to come back to discipline, effort, wisdom, acting with intent, knowing what we are doing. We should make choices today, so our future selves and society should see us retrospective as taking the right decisions. Next slide. So let's explore, this will be a long slide. So let's explore a bit the source of Moloch power. And try to find a single source to make a nice story. And I believe that largely the source of Moloch powers is coming from the beliefs or adoption of or exploiting the concept of arbitrage. These beliefs often are manifesting in axioms like arbitrage is desirable, arbitrage is inevitable, everybody has a price, or the notion that you can measure everything with the same measure. And unfortunately, the same measure is almost always the dollar, money, classical money. Such beliefs perpetuate the idea that wealth is the ultimate measure of social contribution. In economics, arbitrage involves exploiting price differences in separate markets for profit. I'm extending a bit the concept of arbitrage to talk about arbitrage in our personal lives, for politicians, and so on. So extending to the society, it's about leveraging imbalances for gains. In politics, this could mean exploiting policy inconsistencies for political capital. Basically, for politicians, I would say that the arbitrage is about lying. It's exploiting the lack of understanding, lack of different inconsistencies, lack of access to the right information, and so on. We could also argue that people are engaging in social networks in some sort of social or emotional, better, arbitrage. They invest time and energy in things that they perceive as with higher emotional return, and disengage from those they deem less rewarding. But of course, in life, you have to sacrifice, you have to think long term, so you have to suffer a bit to get the real benefits. So arbitrage can be described in any system where imbalances are exploited for various forms of value on all these different layers. So Moloch, as the god of arbitrage, reigns on a staggering lack of sophistication and understanding of nature in the nature of money and currencies. So even on our emotional level, we can talk somehow in an abstract way about some sort of currency. We are paying with our lives. We live the life in different ways. So, think in this term. But I'll go back to economy. In his books, the most regretted economist, Bernard Lietier, describes a spectrum of possibilities between yang money and yin money. Our society seems fixated on a narrow type of money, yang money. History may very well judge us as an era where with an unhealthy obsession for yang money. And these young money are basically very useful in arbitrage. They are very good on exploiting others, taking benefit from different markets and so on. The yin money are gift money, basically, the opposite of this. But there are hundreds, maybe thousands of intermediary types of money that are in the middle. And the key of all these ideas is that trying to create barriers in this interoperability also basically will create protection against exploitation and somehow to stop this moloch from optimizing on short-term things. Technology, particularly decentralized technologies and artificial intelligence, I believe they offer a beacon of hope. They could help us navigate a complex world organized around maybe thousands or millions of currencies, each representing different forms of value and societal contribution. With purpose and intention, the arbitrage could be slowed. So we don't want to kill arbitrage everywhere, but they should be slowed, and arbitrage should be used only in some areas of our lives. And therefore, the volatility and the speed of history could be slowed down. So my positive message is that we have the tools and potential to defeat Moloch and rewrite the narrative if we understand the root cause. Let's go to the next slide. So let's pivot to a more optimistic note and explore the concept of decentralized brands as tools for defeating Moloch. Brands are not just marketing gimmicks. They are essential tools that help us navigate social complexity. They serve as heuristics as shortcuts for decision-making in a reality that usually is too complex for us as humans to fully understand. It's quite interesting that we could already see signs that the world is evolving towards something that I coined in previous articles we published as decentralized brands. So consider, for example, open source projects. They function as early examples of decentralized brands because they are driven by community contributors rather by centralized authorities. So we have an ecosystem of contributors. Nobody is fully controlling everything. So it's a first sign that this concept of decentralized brands could be successful. Similarly, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum could be perceived as essentially decentralized brands operating on blockchain technology. right? They are like an organization, like a brand, like a company, like a religion for some people, right? They are not something else from this perspective. Online communities could also be seen as emerging decentralized brands or incipient decentralized brands. What is the definition of a decentralized brand? For my research group and in our articles, usually decentralized brands can be thought as organization or ecosystems controlled by independent stakeholders. These organizations could be online or offline, doesn't matter, but should utilize technologies like internet, social networks, blockchain, and AI, especially should utilize them for governance, but it's not even this mandatory. The thinking is that most human organizations are essentially brands, and there's a growing potential that these organizations to evolve into more decentralized brands that will use the blockchain technologies and AI for governance. I'm not mentioning the benefits. I think you understand the idea. This could be a game changer in how we organize society and the institutions, and potentially could offer solutions to challenges that we discussed in the previous slide. Let's go to the next slide. And another interesting example of a concept that is similar or could be considered as decentralized brand is this concept of digital trust ecosystem, or DTE. Sometimes I'll just call it DTE. Digital trust ecosystems are currently just, I know about 2 or 3 decentralized trust ecosystems. They are organized currently as consortiums or organizations, environments on an industry level. So could be in the payments industry or could be in the health industry. I like to share my experience and my involvement with PharmaLedger Association, PharmaLedger experiment. PharmaLedger is organizing DTE and succeeded to bring a use case for the pharma industry in production. So this is the DTE is not like trying to do something bad, like I don't know, supporting interests of the members in detriment of the society or anything like this. They try to create a digital trust ecosystem, to create tools, practices to reduce the cost for the whole industry without creating monopolies or right. Basically, it tries to find a way to bring together competitors under what the PharmaLedger is calling an umbrella brand for different use cases to reduce cost for all the participants, right, in the ecosystem, and to bring more trust from the use of digital technologies. We can only hope that such successful experiments will pave the way for a cultural transformation for other organizations, and hopefully moving them away from the influence of the Moloch. Right? They don't want to create monopolies, don't create to use the arbitrage to benefit. They learn digital transformation, learn or experiment on how we can create more trust using technology. My hope is that maybe one day services provided by states or supranational organization will be organized, could be potentially organized as DTEs. So a lot of governance efforts, a lot of visibility could be extracted from use of blockchain, but also the artificial intelligence, from my point of view, could help people navigate the huge amounts of data that will be generated by these digital trust ecosystems. That's the challenge there. Let's go to the next slide. So let's talk more about what's the feeling about the decentralized brands governance. So today's dominant governance models are mainly centralized, as we all know this. This governance is organized around strict hierarchies, or in a better case, in democracies, you have majorities. Alternative models exist, such as holacracy, DAOs, these decentralized autonomous organizations, agile movement. It could be considered somehow like an idea about governance, but we could safely assume that the influence on the old of the alternatives on the centralized form of governance remains quite minimal. I don't want to be misunderstood and say I don't advocate for entirely replacing all governance or anything like this. My idea is that we should boost the resilience by larger adoption of decentralized brand principles, harnessing AI and blockchain. We must counterbalance large corporations and state government powers and foster new value-driven collaboration ties that were impossible without blockchain and assistance from artificial intelligence. So the idea is to have more balance, to have more diversity, not replacing something, not creating radical revolutions. Decentralized brand governance aims in their concepts to offer alternatives to the traditional models, and it champions systems, for example, that in which one can live easily if they no longer resonate on the level of the values and behavior. So it's something that you cannot do in a democracy or in other more strict models, or it is quite difficult to do it. Technologies like blockchain, capturing value in digital forms, offer methods to somehow migrate your value, fork it, transfer value, and so on. Yeah, they offer interesting opportunities on all these layers. So instead of imagining a singular ideal future, I strongly believe that we should aim for a diversity. So imagine a diverse array of decentralized brands collaborating, competing, all contributing to a fulfilling human experience. It's not about having something like radical that is changing everything everywhere with the same approach. This is not going to it's insane, right? Drawing inspiration from William Gibson words, the future is already here, but is not evenly distributed. I propose you to think about experiments to distribute it more equitably and wisely. Our objective, as I said before, is to moderate the rhythm, the speed of the history for increasing the safety of the civilization. And this transformation should include everyone, including even the political and the economic elites. So let's clarify this even more. Billionaires or successful elites play a positive role usually, like they offer success models for young people. This is quite good and motivates. So aiming for perfect equality or other things like this are proven, I think, by the history as insane. But however, right, these inequalities and other things are good in a way, but there's our shared responsibility to stop elites from getting caught in moral games, right? Thinking too short term, trying to keep their power with all cost, and then on long term self-destroying and destroying maybe the world with them. Let's go to the next slide. So it's time to get a bit deeper at the end of the presentation in the solution part. I believe that the only solution is to create innovative governance technologies. And creating governance technologies will happen if we manage to start numerous research projects around decentralized governance. We badly need projects that potentially have a strong impact on real aspects in people's lives, right? So think about this as social research laboratories. And coming back to the decentralized social networks, in my opinion, the decentralized social networks provides maybe the only, but for me, it's the ideal settings for such experiments. It's hard to experiment with people's lives, right? There's some billionaires could imagine creating some islands, some utopias, and so on. And I think that this will not be enough, or have not enough as number. Not have enough number of experiments to really create something fast enough to solve the challenges that we have. So my presentation is based on the idea that future research projects should create a set of experimental decentralized social networks that incorporate antibodies against arbitrage and moloch into their DNA, into their nature. Technologies are not, unfortunately, they are not politically neutral. Therefore, it's crucial to have hundreds, maybe, of such experiments. And this should go to different levels of adoption, to local communities, to create, that's one of my dream, decentralized brand-based businesses. So to compete with corporations. Imagine a search engine organized as decentralized brand, or AI services organized as decentralized brand. So there will be no central or huge corporation controlling everything and driving the technology for their purposes, but a community-based approach. And maybe even the public authorities, the states, other organizations could later adopt this kind of thinking. So in conclusion, why are decentralized networks the most appropriate place to start? I think they offer a platform or ideas and technologies like the ones from digital trust ecosystems can be brought to the large masses. These networks can serve as testing grounds for new forms of governance, discover economic incentives, and new types of social interactions. The future of decentralized social networks should be, in my opinion, rich and multifaceted, incorporating economic incentives, as I mentioned, local currencies, and different types of currencies, yang and yin, and combination between different aspects of yang and yin. I imagine that crowdfunding mechanisms could also play a role. But of course, the success of these initiatives will rely on alignment of local communities, large or small non-government organizations, and as I mentioned, the states and public authorities. I really hope that we're beginning a new era that promises to solve some of the most pressing challenges through innovation, through technology. But I strongly believe that our major challenge as humanity is to really create good governance. Right? Governance is a social technology, and as I mentioned, this could benefit from the evolution of other technologies. These governance technologies must aim to slow down the speed of history sufficiently to provide humanity with opportunities for safe exploration. They must offer time to enjoy, for us to enjoy the results of science and technology. Next slide, the last slide. So as we come to the end of this presentation, I like to remember you this perspective. Outsmarting exploitation is the greatest promise made by the artificial intelligence for humanity. I strongly believe that this will not be possible without proper governance technologies. These social technologies, these governance technologies does not exist now. Technologies that could use hard technologies as blockchain and AI. So I imagine here some sort of AI assistance, AI moderation to really filter huge amounts of data. This technology could be created, and maybe this is the only way to solve the challenges and to benefit from the opportunities that lies in front of us. This presentation is basically a call for research collaborations on new initiatives that can reshape our understanding on a decentralized brand governance, decentralized governance in general. Specifically, I invite you to consider contributing to new projects, new initiatives, to create new digital trust ecosystems on different industries. We have some experience with the health industry, but I think that this could be beneficial for other industries. And why not decentralized governance experiments using blockchain and AI, starting with some new types of decentralized social networks. So yeah, thank you. Let's thank you for your time and attention, and I look forward for potential collaborations, and yeah, let's hope for a reaching journey ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sinika. I just would like to communicate to the audience that we are launching the poll. This poll contains only one question with relevance to one of the slides from Sinika, generally on the power, or let's say the most, in your opinion, the most promising powers or drivers for the strategies of the decentralized social brands. So I'm launching, and I hope you could answer, because I think that that would be a feedback from all of you, you know, on the potential leaders in the strategy, in building the strategy, in the development. Personally, Sinika, I would like to thank you for the presentation. It was very empowering, because I think it puts in the right place the technology that's supposed to help people, you know, serve us in the best meaning of these words. And also it empowers all of us to contribute. Quite often, I think some of us might feel that we are overpowered by the technologies, you know, by the progress. And sometimes we feel, I mean, it depends on the people, but sometimes it feels that it moves very fast, which is good. But it also feels that we might lose at some aspects the kind of control. And the presentation that you gave brings us back to the points to highlighting those gaps that we can actually contribute and make a change. So thank you very much. It was enlightening. We will keep the poll for a while, maybe about 5 minutes. So take your time to answer. Sinika, there are two questions asked. I wouldn't say that those are like direct questions. Those are more, you know, aspects of some philosophical also thinking, which is good. Would you like me to read it, or would you like to see the Q&A?
No,
How would
I did it. So maybe I'll start.
We just don't pronounce the names. We call attendees, right?
Yeah. So if you want to read, that's good. Maybe so we switch the role. So
absolutely. So I will read the first attendee on the line. Thank you for your insights, which I share this. Thank you as well. I wonder if slowing down progress can theoretically improve things. If it is possible in an international world where different countries, actors will go ahead, and it is a good idea to leave progress to other. Many may be benevolent actors, so meaning that probably those that are acting on behalf of goodwill.
Yeah, I ask myself sometimes this kind of question, and this was recently in the attention of the world with these initiatives to slow down the LLM movement and so on. You know, all this discussion. The thing is, I do not believe that in the hype that we are in a few years we'll get a singularity, or we'll have a technology that powerful that will owner control over the world. Now it's a matter of perception. I try to understand, given the technology, how it works, what's happening. I think is more hype created by the Silicon Valley guys for their commercial purposes, right? They pretend to defend us or to care, but they have other interests, commercial interests, right? It's a game there. And also, I don't think we should stop anything. I'm just proposing to start sooner than later experiments to create more diversity in the ecosystem, because if this kind of powerful technologies will be created, like these demigods that I mentioned in the presentation, because if you create a god like technology, then I don't know. I don't think we maybe there's a big filter that will destroy civilizations, or will just make us pets in this world. But that I don't think we can prepare. But we should prepare on a world where we have powerful technologies, but not that powerful, right? And maybe so. I don't think we should think like stopping everything. We should diversify. We should prepare the governance for this new world. Not this will automatically stop or reduce the speed, because there are more power centers naturally. And if China or other powers really are that dangerous, I think the current systems are quite well aware and working on this. They don't think there are different layers, I think, on this issue. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sinika. So I hope we can mark this question as answered. And there is one more. You mentioned arbitrage causes systems that breeds fragility. But isn't everything a system or web of interconnected or interrelated systems? The whole is larger than the sum of its parts, question mark. Systems are inevitable, whether imposed or self-organized. Why is arbitrage the cause in your view?
So what, of course, all these systems are interconnected, and the potential for arbitrage and creating benefits in this from the systems always exist. What I'm calling for is to be conscious about this and have discipline and not exploiting this potential for arbitrage, right? Creating in the DNA of the society, getting wise about these things, understanding where they lead, right? It's like we all know to not eat sugar too much, right? Or some of us, right? We have to stop doing some things. That's the thing. Not, of course. Unfortunately, this is the world. We have to stop doing some of things that will damage us.
Thank you very much, Sinika. So I will end the poll now. So the question we asked again the audience is what they believe would be the dominating strategy or the most powerful or promising strategy from your slide. Tonya, would it be possible to jump to the slide just to show it? The slide with the figure and the 4 dimensions. Spoiler alert on the screen.
Which slide, Christina? Sorry.
And from the Sinika's presentation, the slide a third from the end, I believe. Here we go. Here, this one. So we asked basically the audience to share which of those powers would be the most promising one. And we have an ultimate leader, which is blockchain-based governance, followed by 2 other colleagues, I would say, which is user experience and empowerment and community and value transfer. So interestingly, the AI is placed on the last place, but the dominating is the blockchain-based governance. I keep the results for further insights, but Sinika, what do you feel about the results of the poll?
Well, my experience from the privacy world, in a way, is like there are too much data that is generated by all these systems, and we have issues in filtering, understanding, and so on. So my hope is that the governance processes will be improved by having our own personal assistants that will filter for us what is noise from what is signal. Of course, this opens a lot of questions and directions to if we continue to have some Silicon Valley based models that we use because they are smarter and better and so on. Yeah, that this will create issues, but I think in 5 or 10 years we'll have technologies that will run on our computers, on our servers, maybe in our data cooperatives, and so if we cannot alone, but at least we should get to our normal reflex to get cooperative, and these systems could really represent our interest, and together with the blockchain traceability and data quality it offers, I think the AI is a must to really make sense of all the mess.
Thank you, Sinika, very much. Thank you. So we are moving to the second part of our webinar, which will be a panel discussion. So I would like to ask all the panelists to turn on the cameras because I'm going to introduce you all. So Sinika will be also joining the panel discussion, but he already got introduced. We have the rest of the panelists and the core team for the preparation of the report, the Decentralized Social Media Report. Let me start with Dr. Yanis Rivolidis. Yanis is a legal academic at the Center for Distributed Ledger Technology at the University of Malta. Yanis has a legal or law background coming from the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki in Greece. His main responsibilities based at the Center for the DLT, or Decentralized Distributed Ledger Technology, as we call for short, include legal stream of the interdisciplinary research and teaching as well at the center. Also, at the same university, Yanis giving lectures at the Department of Media, Communications and Technology Law. And important to mention that over the past 12 years, Yanis collected, accumulated and performed the teaching and the research across many countries, including Norway, of course, Greece, the UK, Germany, Malta. And his main focus includes the, as you already understood, the involvement of the emerging technologies such as blockchain, with an emphasis on the digital commercial transactions, the digital assets, copyright law, data protection law, private international law, several other domains as well, concluding with the philosophy of the law, which I think very essential skill set. Welcome, Yanis, to have you. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Christina, for the invitation and introduction.
Thank you. Then we also have on board Professor Joshua Eliul, who is a colleague of Yanis. So we have two representatives from the University of Malta. Joshua is Associate Professor of Computer Science, also at the University of Malta, and the Director of the Center for the Distributed Ledger Technologies. Very interestingly to mention that they have a program, master program, that actually invites students with different backgrounds, not only the technology, computer science, but also law, finance, economics. So the graduates can easily navigate and jump, from different angles. I think it's also essential for the technologies such as blockchain and their impact to the society. Joshua is a well-known academic and very active contributor and the external expert of the EOBOF. So we collaborate quite a lot together. Joshua, happy to have you.
Thanks, Christina.
We have also with us Professor Catarina Ferreira da Silva, who is also active member of the experts team. I think I just will refer it to all the people, the panelists, that because all of us collaborate quite a lot. Catarina is Associate Professor in Information Science and Technology at the University Institute of Lisbon. Catarina also is the Director of the Information Science, Technology and Architecture Research Center and the Director of the Master Program that graduate students in the domain of information science management. Catarina got involved, I would say, with the blockchain and the technologies related to distributed ledger technologies since 2017, and from that moment actively engaged and interested in the subject. Catarina, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Christina.
Thanks. We have with us Daniel Zego. Daniel is a very technical person. He's a software architect working with different blockchain and DLT, as well as digital currency systems for around 7 years. Interestingly, that Daniel is actually giving or teaching blockchain and smart contract programming in several universities, active member of Hyperledger community, running also Hyperledger Budapest meeting series, also doing meetup presentations, contributing to quite often, regularly, to the different blockchain topics, discussions, also very active member at the EUBOF, and also contributing to the reports of the Digital Euro Association. Daniel, welcome.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the great introduction.
Thank you. Last but not least, also our active member, Amit Joshi. I would say Amit represents the also aspect of the entrepreneurship. He is alumni of the University of Michigan and SDA Bocconi, holding MBA and BTech degrees. For about 13 years or maybe more, Amit is involved actively in the aspects of the entrepreneurship, so we can call him entrepreneur, interested and involved in business strategy and product management. And for about 7 years, he's actively working in the blockchain, Web3 and crypto space. Also, over these past 7 years, Amit co-founded several projects and also helped actually building the ecosystems, helped teams at early stages, working in the use cases, on the use cases in the DeFi, NFT, Metaverse, zero knowledge based projects, and many more. Amit?
Good afternoon, all,
Welcome.
and thanks for the introduction, Katrina.
Thank you. So let me give you just a few highlights or a few organizational moments how we would like to structure our panel discussion. So I already mentioned the report that we worked on. This report, of course, covers many topics. Our attempt with this panel discussion is to touch upon several topics. I will be calling our panelists to start the discussion, then open up, let's say, the subject, and then the rest will be contributing. You are free to ask questions. Very much welcome, actually. We hope that you will be active. And also at the end of the panel discussion, we will launch again poll with 2 questions, just to assess what was the most insightful for you and what would you like to learn more. So this will help us, to create a strategy on general disseminations and helping all of us to learn more. Also, I would like to mention that one of the topics discussed will be a very high-level touch up, I would say, aspects of the study that we made while we were preparing the report. We launched EU survey for the general public, and we got some insights. So our experts will share their opinion on the results. Either they relate to them or they are something that was rather unexpected to get. So the first topic would be, I would say, two legs, 2 branches. Generally, the difference, the core differences between social media, Web 2 and 3, towards the Web 2 and 3, and what are the benefits of the decentralized social media, well known. I would ask Katarina to start the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina, and all the team of the European Blockchain Observatory Forum for organizing this workshop, and also good afternoon to all the attendees and to my colleagues, panelists, and congratulations to the presentation of Sinica Aldway, that was very interesting. So to discuss, to introduce this first topic of our panelist discussion. So social media 2.0 is usually considered to be the set of platforms that we all know that are centralized, such as Facebook, Twitter, now X, and YouTube, where these companies control and hold authority and ownership of what is put there. So even if the users are the creators of the content, we all know that censorship is applied, for instance, to decide what is fake, what are fake news and what are not fake news. What is the difference between fake news and propaganda, or to decide what is the truth, can be controlled using this kind of social media. Also, to share up some opinions, for instance, during the COVID period, some of these platforms did allow to publish certain content, and for some subjects we still not know where really is the truth, and if the truth is black or white, or if is sometimes in between those extremes. So the goal or the intention with the social media 3.0 is to have a more decentralized approach, to provide more control to the content producers, so that the users and the content producers are more as part owners and have more control over the content. And this enables also to have possibly more or less censorship. So for this to happen, there is a need of a technological infrastructure that enables the decentralization to happen in a smooth way. And if I go over the key benefits of this kind of social media, more decentralized, we can think one of them is the lack of single centralized authority, meaning that there is no single, the intent is not to have a single company that controls what should be published or not, even if these platforms can have their governance rules. The user, as I already mentioned, the user has more authorship and more autonomy over the content, and can also be part of the community in the sense that he can run an instance and have a server. So he can manage a server in the decentralized infrastructure. It is easier, or at least the protocols are being developed and evolving, to have a cross-platform data exchange based on open protocols, such as ActivityPub. Another interesting point of a decentralized infrastructure is that redundancy in the network is created, so we avoid the single point of failure. So meaning that if a node in the infrastructure fails for any reason, there is a redundancy, and the other nodes can take over and answer to the demand. There is also less exposure to content control, so the mass surveillance is less likely to happen. And the community is also more independent from the larger tech companies that usually control the information and, so to say, the truth. It is also, in principle, a community that is more resistant to monopolistic practices as a consequence of this decentralized structure. And it also can be the seed for social innovation, as we can think of moving from an hierarchical governance to a bottom-up governance coming from the interaction of the users. So I think that I stop now here.
Thank you, Katarina. The rest of the team, would you like to add anything on top of that? Daniel?
Yeah, so perhaps I will just highlight this one topic that, I mean, I think from an economic point of view, what's very important with decentralized social media is that you can put ownership to a piece of digital data or piece of digital content. It's at the moment kind of a cryptographic ownership, so it's not necessarily fully compliant with the legal ownership, but nevertheless it can be an ownership. And then, well, eventually, from an economic point of view, like, you know, property rights and property ownership that accelerated like the whole capitalism. So in this sense, this tokenization or cryptographic ownership on a piece of digital data that might actually accelerate, you know, I mean, advanced digital markets. So I would say this is one of the most important parts from an economic point of view. We can call tokenization, we can call NFT, but nevertheless, that's kind of a cryptographic ownership, and you just can't do it with a centralized media platform, you know, because if you have your content on Facebook, then it doesn't matter if you have an NFT for that. It's just fully controlled by Facebook. So I think this is one of the key advantage from an economic point of view.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I think just to highlight also the social media 2.0 versus 3.0. So it's centralized and decentralized, as Katarina highlighted. And I think that this is the core, all the benefits and all the challenges come in with the aspect of centralization and decentralization. And I think generally during the preparation of the report, of course, we discovered many benefits. And I think many of us are on the side of the decentralized social media. Katarina highlighted many of the benefits. So also to incorporate the words of Daniel, so I think it's about you know, ownership, control, and everything that is related to the ownership. On top of this comes the censorship, right? Because the ownership is it's a base for the terms of service, which includes, of course, the censorship. And another aspect, maybe I would like to add from my side, it's the interoperability. I think that with I hope that the panelists will also support me. I think with the decentralized social media, there are, as also Katarina mentioned, Activity Hub, right? Activity Hub. It's something that allows to use content across different platforms, and this is something that is not there with the centralized. So I hope that we answered, and I'm sure we answered on a high level for the audience this topic. I think we can move on. On topic 2. Okay, the topic 2 is a little bit going deeper towards technological underpinning of the decentralized social media. Of course, we are not going to discuss, you know, the a very technical terms, but in a nutshell, I hope, Joshua, you could give us just hands up on this. Thanks.
Definitely. So yeah, when we're talking about decentralized technology, it's quite important that we become a bit more nuanced in regards to what we mean by decentralized, because there's different aspects to which a system can or cannot be decentralized. And if we really look at what exists right now, the social media platforms of today, so our YouTubes, Facebook, Metas, Twitter, X, whatever, they're centralized systems governed completely by a centralized entity. Now, internally, their architecture, their computers are heavily distributed. They have hundreds, thousands of computers working together to provide a service. And distribution is often confused with decentralization. Distribution of computing systems can still be centralized, like is the case in these types of systems. And what social media platforms learned quite early on is that they could rely on a new type, or more than a new type, they could rely on eventually consistent algorithms, which meant that users out there do not need to see all data that is completely up to date. So if I put a post out there and my post hasn't reached your computer yet, or computers in the infrastructure that are close to you yet, it doesn't require you to wait to interact with me. You could have a partial view and still interact with the social media system. And then eventually this update would reach you as well. So very early on, we learned that we can deal with partial and information that's not completely up to date yet. And this is partly where I believe the realization came that we can have decentralized systems and that also operate on a similar mechanism where we do not need a single source of truth necessarily. That's one view of the decentralized social media platforms being produced or being proposed. So ActivityPub and the Fediverse, which is built on ActivityPub and other protocols, try to achieve decentralization in that anyone can run their own computing system. Anyone can run a node that is part of the Fediverse. Anyone can run a different platform. So it's an open protocol allowing for different types of platforms. And this is the interoperability that Christina mentioned. And that's great. However, when we say that these systems are decentralized, what exactly do we mean? When a user joins a particular instance in these types of decentralized social networks, there can still be points of control. So we have seen in the past instances where a particular instance censored certain information. And it was censored for good causes because the information may have been illegal or against the terms of the particular platform, but it really highlights that there are still points of control in these types of decentralized networks. Well, the type I'm talking about right now, and that's because as users, you subscribe to a particular instance and that instance keeps control. So that's one, I would say, one direction that decentralized social media networks took. Then we're seeing other types of social media, decentralized social media platforms that are proposing even what we would like to achieve is even the network operators themselves, the infrastructure themselves, should not have some control on the data or the processes that are used. And this is where the more blockchain and DLT-based decentralized social media platforms are going, that no one, not even an instance provider, should have that control. And the reason why we can achieve stuff like this is because using blockchain and DLT, we can write code that will do exactly what the code is written to do without anyone having the control to interfere with that code or that data, even if they were the programmer. So that's another direction that we're seeing. And then there's also protocols like Nostr, where we're trying to give, like the blockchain and the DLT solutions, more power back to the people, where people are in charge of their own cryptographic keys, their own public and private key, kind of like a username and a password, just much longer. And using public key cryptography, using your public and your private key, you and only you can write certain messages and prove that you wrote that message. And by doing so, we remove reliance on certain centralized actors, even certain types of decentralized social media platforms. So Nostr, unlike ActivityPub and the Fediverse-like platforms, remove that control from various instances. And they also propose that data is replicated around different relays. So I would say those are the three main directions that I'm seeing in terms of decentralized social media platforms. And interestingly, on the blockchain and the DLT one and on the Nostr protocol and similar approaches where users have to be in charge of their own keys, their cryptographic keys, we really have to ask how many users out there are capable of owning, maintaining their own cryptographic keys, that if they lose this key, they lose their identity, they lose their account. So ironically, we're starting to see custodial and centralized solutions being introduced as a means of helping users keep track of their identities, of their usernames, their passwords, or rather the private public key pairs. So what's crucial to this space, besides identifying the nuances of what we mean by decentralized, what it really means, what censorship still exists or doesn't exist, what I think that the main challenge is identifying the right balance between centralization and decentralization, and seeing where certain centralized parties can provide some added benefit and which centralized parties we should rather remove. I would say that that's more or less the summary of the types of technologies and about the message of let's dig a bit deeper into the nuances. And yeah, I would leave it off there before going any deeper.
Thank you, Joshua. Actually, I think you covered pretty much the topic too, though the rest of the team, would you like to add anything? All right, I think that Joshua, you also made a very smooth transition to the topic 3, which discusses the challenges. Of course, there are many challenges, and I think that most of us who, at least I'm speaking on behalf of the team, we are advocates of the decentralized social media because we do see many benefits, though we believe, and we also outlined in the report, that it's also important to know the challenges. Or concerns. It should be wisely analyzed. So I would like to invite Amit to share with us the challenges that you believe shall be mentioned today.
Sure. Thanks for that, Christina. And yeah, absolutely. It's what Joshua just mentioned, flowing through it and to potentially show what the risks and what the challenges are when we talk about decentralized social media. Let's just have a quick look back at what social media 2.0 brought. As of now, if you see the number of users that are available on Facebook, they run in billions. And if you think about transitioning them towards decentralized social medias and them maintaining instances of there, it's going to be a real big challenge. So adoption of the technical know-how of maintaining a server, maintaining your private keys, and understanding what ownership of your data means. That's a really important challenge when we transition from social media 2.0 to 3.0 when we talk about decentralized social media. Something which we have seen on platforms such as Mastodon and Steemit, in which users maintaining their instances and having issues on access or losing their data if a server goes down, it's shown a lot of risks around this. How the data management itself works, if you are owning a server and if you're holding data from anybody else, how the legal repercussions around that would work. Again, that's an important challenge as well. And again, looking at from the blockchain end itself. So we have crypto users, if you can call them, in a sense of around 500 million people own or hold crypto. But when you talk about decentralized apps, even from this, it comes down to 15%. Not more than 50 million people as of now are engaged in decentralized wallets, and main thing being MetaMask, which is easy to use. So ease of usage, how easy these UI and UXs are for decentralized social media platforms. As of now, it's a challenge. Something as a quick example, when you look at friend.tech, which launched around a couple of months ago, it's seen a lot of interest from users from different communities, how they can incentivize and be part of the network and share a lot of information out there. Yet again, the risks still entail, how do you maintain your own servers? Is the cost of privacy or owning your own data fair enough to lose all the incentives rather than being surrounded by a centralized entity? So those are the things when I look at it, to have this decentralized social media coming more into adoption and comparing it to somebody such as a Twitter, somebody such as a Facebook, where misinformation, cyberbullying, those practices come in more into being. Whether you want to create instances and smaller silos in which you can share your own information, or would you like feedback from different ends? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Amit. So I think that we can kind of maybe categorize a little bit. There are some aspects that are coming around the quality of the information, right? Some aspects about generally maybe technical, I wouldn't say knowledge, but maybe capacity as well, right? Technically wise, to maintain the servers. And also what you mentioned, and actually it invites to the discussion to the next topic, is the legal matters. So I think that indeed, maybe we are willing to use something, but when we don't have enough of the legal understanding or ground, it might be challenging. We just don't know what we can do, what we cannot do. So we have a next topic, and I hope, Yanni, you could also enlighten us in terms of the regulatory and legal base that exists right now.
Thank you very much, Christina. Whenever challenges are being made, the person with the legal background should be the bearer of bad news. So I will try to do that. Although, jokes aside, I think that when we're talking about decentralized social media, we are facing a very interesting legal and regulatory challenge. And that relates to the discussions that we had earlier, and mostly goes to the governance of these systems. Our existing IT laws are more or less designed in order to accommodate business models that are more akin to what we see in Web 2.0, whereas Joshua explained, a powerful centralized authority decides about everything. In the decentralized social media space, on the other hand, this level of power distribution is not so common. I'm not saying that there is zero power distribution, because, again, the decentralization within Web 3.0 social media comes in different shapes, colors, and degrees. But nonetheless, there is a clear cultural and governance difference between the two. And that makes existing legal frameworks feel a little bit awkward in these spaces. Now, when we are talking about addressing legal challenges in social media spaces, I would like to make clear that we're talking here about fundamental rights that are somehow being infringed. And usually these fundamental rights are either the right of freedom of speech, the right to privacy and data protection, or the right to conduct business. These are usually the rights that are put under heavy scrutiny, and intellectual property, of course. And in order to address problems that relate to such infringements, one can see two different layers of rules that are available right now in social media spaces, especially in decentralized social media spaces. On the one hand, we have community-driven rules. Many times communities create their own covenants, as they call them, or their own guiding principles, so to speak. And that is part of the regulatory landscape. Now, the elephant in the room is that next to this, we also have government-based regulation. And since we are in the European Union, I must mention the Digital Services Act, which is the latest attempt of the European Union to regulate these spaces. And the degree of interaction between the two regulatory spaces, the community-driven and the DSA rules, really depends on the governance structures of the different decentralized social media models that we see out there. Roughly speaking, we can see at least two different variations. There are decentralized social media projects that draw from the free and open source tradition. And when we say decentralized social media in this case, we talk about services where everybody shares the same software, which is open and accessible, but the software is being run independently by all kinds of independent servers that are not, at least in theory, coordinated by somebody, right? And then we have blockchain-based social media projects, which heavily depend on the classic governance structures that we know from the blockchain space. Mostly, we're talking about the consensus mechanism that each blockchain uses in order to strive its direction. And this plays a major role because, especially when it comes to regulation from the Digital Services Act, it makes it sometimes difficult to identify who is the entity that is responsible to undertake certain legal obligations. The DSA Act, so to speak, is based on a model where there is a clearly identifiable entity that is responsible to take up responsibilities so that human rights are not infringed in social media. In decentralized social media, though, it might be more difficult to identify this entity. And exactly because there are different layers of centralization and decentralization, this different entity might change from use case to use case. So that becomes a constant struggle, so to speak. Now, next to this, I need to stress something. One of the major particularities of decentralized social media is that they try to promote a different ethos on how we should interact online. They reflect a little bit more the more, let's say, early day internet philosophy, where users are supposed to be empowered and everything is supposed to be roaming free. But because the internet has changed over time, our current laws reflect the realities of Web 2.0, where the internet is mostly directed by powerful centralized companies. And that is reflected throughout the Digital Services Act. For example, if we see the basic obligations that social media platforms have according to the Digital Services Act, the duties that are imposed upon them require the people behind the social media platforms to be constantly dedicating their time on them. On the other hand, on decentralized social media, we see remnants of this culture where people that are just hobbyists would like to just run a server in order to invite their friends to share common interests. The problem here is that it seems like the regulatory burden of the Digital Services Act might be too heavy for these hobbyists that want to run individual servers. And that creates a certain degree of a cultural clash between what decentralized social media want to achieve and the direction to which the law is trying to take them. And again, I'm not here to blame the Digital Services Act. The Digital Services Act is a reaction to the predominant social media model that we have in Web 2.0. But it seems like it might create a certain degree of friction because in terms of legal applicability, decentralized social media fall within the scope of the Digital Services Act. They cannot escape it just by claiming that they are decentralized. They will be regulated. And of course, one last comment, it is important not to forget that regulation, no matter whether it is community driven or whether it is government driven, is important. Why? Because no matter whether social media platforms are decentralized or not, human rights are in danger. And we have to interfere somehow. I don't know what the right recipe is at the moment, because we will have to give decentralized social media some time and some space to breathe. But what I can tell you is that right now, with the Digital Services Act in place, they face a much more complicated regulatory landscape. They cannot benefit from the regulatory gap that existed when Facebook was created or Google was created and the such. So they will have to fight for it. But I think, in order to close with an optimistic note, I think I find it interesting that in the first poll, our audience members have displayed a lot of trust in blockchain governance. They might be correct. This might help democratize a little bit the process, by virtue of which we create community rules in regulating decentralized social media, which I believe is one of the major weaknesses of Web 2.0 social media. Nonetheless, what I can reassure the audience is that legal academics are going to be having a lot of work in the coming months, because, of course, we will definitely have to find a way to compromise the Digital Services Act and the philosophy of decentralized social media.
Thank you very much, Yanis. I have to share with you guys, because this is the first, not the first time, but one of the rare cases where actually the legal matters are, it's at some point, maybe, I wouldn't say more important, but they are probably those that should be considered ahead. And I worry more about those regulations than the, you know, what the technology can bring, because I think this is the core of the use, right? Especially here in Europe, where many aspects are regulated to care and protect the human rights, of course. Thank you very much, Yanni. It was very insightful. I think we can move on to the aspects of the economic exploitation. I think that generally in our topics, again, in the report, we invite the audience to get familiar with the reports when it's published. We try to cover all the most important aspects of the functionality and the use of the solutions within the society, and of course, economics and the business models, the future of, I would say, business models, essential for the decentralized social media. And we have Daniel in our team who can guide through the tokenization as an approach for the business modeling and give some examples of it. Daniel?
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot. So practically, I mean, if we speak of like business models of different like decentralized social media platforms, you should think of something which is a platform economics. So, I mean, first in a platform economics, there are many roles with different motivations. So basically, you can imagine there are people maintaining the infrastructure, running the servers. There are just people providing contents or contributing contents, basically. There are content consumers. There might be kind of platform maintainers, like with, I mean, groups with, and people for groups with admin roles and stuff like that. There can be like different other, roles as well, like advertisers, app roles, and so on. And there can be even like investors. So first, this is, one of the, first challenge of a platform economy. There are different roles, and these roles are incentivized somehow differently. And then if we speak of like, motivation or incentivization, there are again different models. So you can just, motivate people financially with money, very simple. But you can motivate people actually, without like monetary reward. So like, if you get a like on Facebook, that's a non-monetary reward. That kind of it works in a kind of a psychological way, kind of a neurotransmitter, if I'm not mistaken. But again, this is a non-monetary reward. So this is like classical social media platform economics. And if we speak of like decentralized platform economics for decentralized social media, then things get more complicated, or because we are just super accelerated with like tokenization. And then all of each and every of these incentivization mechanisms can be something which is somehow controlled or driven by a token practically, which is of course running on a blockchain. And if you think of that way, again, there might be like different things. There can be like crypto badges. Crypto badge works practically as a like on Facebook. It's just practically a token on the blockchain. There can be like NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which are, more from a badge because they are transferable. So practically they might represent kind of a digital right, digital ownership also of a piece of content, of a piece of media content. Then there might be like non-tradable fungible tokens, which again act more like as badges. Practically, there can be like fungible tokens, like local currencies, for instance, which are not tradable for anything, just somehow used inside of the system. There might be platform tokens. There can be like tradable tokens. There can be like even currencies or kind of cryptocurrencies, motivating people for sharing, for instance, media content or running the servers. And there might be even investment tokens as well. So in a complex decentralized social media platform, there can be a complex tokenization. So if you just take, for instance, Steemit, that's a decentralized blogging platform, there are like three different tokens acting as a platform token, as an investment token, as a kind of a local currency, incentivizing people for sharing content. And well, actually we still not sure which, I mean, tokenization model or incentivization model is the best. I would say, I mean, there's a lot of improvement coming probably in the future, and then perhaps in 10 years or in 15 years we will see that, hey, this is the tokenization model that works well in such situations, and this is the tokenization model which doesn't work for some reason. So that's about the business models of decentralized social media. So again, mostly it's like advanced tokenization scenarios with multi-token systems.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I would like to ask the rest of the team if you would like to add anything on top of that. All right, then we are moving to the next topic, and I believe that will be a concluding topic for the discussion. So I will give you just a very brief, a couple of minutes update on what kind of study we've done. So under the preparation of the report, we felt that it's essential to communicate with general public because we felt that maybe we're biased, we are often in the team and we are more curious about some technologies, and at the end of the day we are preparing the report, so we get familiar of course with some of the aspects. But what about the general public? Even though we are many of us are in the technology domain, we know that it's the centralized social media is not that much discussed or used. So we launched a survey. It was anonymous, and we got 72 responses. It was open for 2 months, and we were assessing 3 main aspects: the awareness of familiarity, experience with the decentralized social media, and the, of course, user experience, if that was something positive, negative, and why, and the potential use in terms of the improvements, in terms of the future motivations, or generally the driven powers of the use or non-use. So again, most of it will be shared in the report, but there are 2 aspects we would like to share with you now. So the first one would be, we can move to the next slide, thank you. The first one will be the motivators. So we did analysis between 2 groups of participants in the survey. The first one, those with the previous experience in decentralized social media, and the other one without. So they might never heard of it or just got familiar with some very basic points, but without any experience, of course. And we try to understand what motivates the people. And actually, as you can see also on the slide, the lead reason or motivator of using decentralized social media or being interested potentially to use it, increased data privacy and ownership. But the second follow-up following lead differed. Those with the experience, it is interoperability, and also mentioned in the first, addressing the first topic. And for those without the experience, it is the control over the content moderation. So I would like to ask our panelists if you believe it makes sense, considering one group had experience and the other didn't have. So this difference, especially with the, not with the lead, but with the co-lead, the runner-up of the motivation factors. You may raise your hand if you would like to answer. Yanis?
Yes. First and foremost, I personally find it interesting that in both groups, increased data privacy and ownership seems to be the lead reason they see for migrating to decentralized social media. Now, Daniel mentioned that, but I need to stress it again. When we talk about ownership, we do not talk about ownership in the legal sense. I hope that becomes clear to everybody in the room. We're talking about the ability to be able to exercise control over one's digital fate, which is an equally important cause, but it's not currently supported by the legal institution of ownership. So that must be important. But I think that demonstrates how important and how users value the ability to be in control. I see it personally as that being the major weakness of the current ecosystem. I think that users are feel completely left below when it comes to that end. My feeling also is, judging from the second reason that seems to be motivating people to join, we see the group with experience talking about interoperability, and the group without experience wanted to have more control over moderation policies. In a way, both groups display, so to speak, willingness to accept more control over what is going on. Interoperability means that, of course, we are outside of walled gardens, which means that if I like the application X from X provider and the application Y from the Y provider, I can do that. I can simultaneously use those. I don't have to limit myself to the same ecosystem. And people want to control moderation policies, which means, for those that don't have so much experience, which means that they want to participate more. Nonetheless, I think something needs to be made clear here. These options mean that users will be more responsible about their digital presence. And I think we need to ask ourselves whether users are ready to overtake this degree of responsibility. For all their shortcomings, Web 2.0 solutions have been very good in user convenience. And while people are motivated and want to have more control, I wonder how ready they are to also overtake the responsibility that comes with this enhanced control.
Thank you, Yanis. I think yes, it's a question that I'm also curious about, but I think we will learn in the next steps of the exploitation or wider adoption of the decentralized networks. Joshua?
Yeah, I would just add that looking at the results, for me, the big difference is this group without experience wants more control over the content moderation policies, and it ate away from the other two groups on the left, interoperability and resilience. And I think the reason is primarily a lot of people involved in decentralized social media and who have tried decentralized social media might actually know that a lot of the platforms out there still do not give a lot of control over the content moderation part. And there's still a lot of centralization in the platforms that exist. And perhaps that's why we see a greater want in the users who want it, but people in the space know that, yeah, it's not completely achievable as much as possible in certain platforms yet.
That is very true, according to my experience as well, even though we discussed the Amit.
Yeah, just adding to that as well, like interoperability with people who have experience on decentralized social media platforms is because they are present on one instance and they want to connect with other instances as well, because their group is small. They want to spread their information further. That is one of the reasons where I see this is really important. And control over content moderation with the guys who do not have experience, it aligns with people who use social media 2.0 kind of scenarios in which they get controlled and they are given preambles on which what content is to be, can they be presented out, what cannot be presented out. So yeah, it's very relatable to understand the different experiences and the results that came out from here.
That is very true. And actually, we can move to the next slide, which discusses the barriers, and what is mentioned can be proven or shown based on our model study. As you can see, again, we now compare the barriers between the same approach of groups, those with and without experience. So the leader for those with and without experience, it's the same lead, basically limited user base. And I think it's very much associated with interoperability, right? If the user base is limited, they're seeking for more of the audience. But then we have again difference in the runner-up. So those responders with the experience, they are valuing the perceived, or they're not valuing, they're highlighting the perceived technical complexities. It's interesting because they already have the experience, right? And those without the experience emphasizing the lack of familiarity. So what would be your thoughts on that? Joshua?
Yeah, I think that point is very clear that as users start to use these platforms, the complexities and the user unfriendliness of the platforms becomes very apparent to them. Whereas users who haven't used it yet would hope that they're as easy to use as the centralized monoliths that we're typically used to using, I guess.
Thank you. So I guess the result makes sense, right? I mean, also with association with the motivators. I think we reached, oh yeah, Yanni, sorry, Yanni, yes?
Just shortly, I think the user base of social media platforms is interrelated to how friendly to the end user the user interface is. And I think it should not be a surprise that we do not have the wide user numbers in decentralized social media. Is not only lack of awareness, but I think the results of the survey display that difficulty in using them or familiarizing oneself with such platforms make it more difficult for people to engage. Look, many people decided to abandon Twitter, now X, in a period of time during the overtake and the such, but recent data displays that they have returned back, probably because they are too used to current user experiences, which is something that probably says that there's a lot of work to be done on the decentralized space in order to make it a little bit more engaging. Because remember, the average user is like Ioannis. I can barely use a computer, let alone navigate myself through different instances.
Yes, that's very true. And I think, Katarina, one more opinion on top.
Yeah, just to add that, yes, this is an evolution, and these decentralized social media platforms will improve, and possibly a business model has to support the development of the user interfaces, so these become more friendly, more user-friendly, and more with a smoother user experience or learning curve. So these become more known within the users. So this is a pathway that has to be done, and in doing this pathway, the challenge will be overcome with the time.
Thank you, Katarina. So thank you also, Yanis, for mentioning the user experience. This is aspect that we also studied in our report. And I think that having more discussions is becoming one of the actually subjects to start with, the user experience. So thank you for bringing it up, and I'm asking the audience again to check the report when we will be publishing. I wanted to announce also that I launched the poll. So if you can share your opinion, your vision on two questions regarding the most insightful discussion agenda that we had today, and those things that you believe you would like to learn more about, that would help us to navigate further efforts in terms of bringing such discussions to the public. And we are on top of the hour, and I saw that Daniel, you also raised the hand. So if you can just very briefly summarize, that would be perfect.
Yeah, just wanted to add actually one thought for the user experience. It's, I mean, mostly because that's a non-custodial user experience, so people owning their own keys and responsible for their own keys, and then they are just not get used to it. But I mean, you know, things are changing, so more and more people just get familiar with this thing. So perhaps in like 10 years, you know, I mean, nobody asks what's a non-custodial service.
Thank you very much. Very important subject. I also saw the rest of the panelists waving, so I guess we're all in agreement with this opinion. So I would like to thank all the panelists for working on the report. It's been a pleasure for being part of the webinar or workshop today. I think I feel that together we all contributed, you know, bringing those social matter subjects that should be discussed, because as Sinika inspired us in the first part that many things are in our hands actually. I would like to thank attendees, the audience, for being active. I see that all the questions were answered, but if there are any remaining points, if we can switch to the last slide with the emails, you can contact us. And the next one. So yes, you can make a print screen of this slide and contact us if anything else to be discussed. We are always in touch. Stay tuned for the news about the report and the paper as well. So it's 6 p.m. and time to finish. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.